Hi, this is Barbie, and this is episode number 4 of the Real Talk podcast. Let's talk about hanging out with winners. Surround yourself with people who make you feel better when you leave them than when you walked in. Did you know that just being around high performers increases your chances of performing higher? It's a thing, and I have noticed it in real life. Stop hanging out with complainers and people who spend way too much of their time being negative and judging others. You don't have time for that. Start figuring out your goals and hanging out with people who are doing the same things. People who are walking the walk and actually doing the stuff that matters. There's no point in spending your days not heading in the direction you want to be going in. It's time to focus on you. Let's get started. I'm so glad you're here. You're listening to the Real Talk podcast, a place for you to come and learn things about the real stuff that you're going through. Not the bright, shiny stuff we see on everyone's feeds, but the gritty, messy parts in the middle that need to be heard to heal. You matter here, and you're not alone. I care about leveling up and helping you do the same. Whatever leveling up means to you, whether that's in business, performance, or parenting. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here. This is Barbie, and this is the Real Talk with Barbie podcast. I want to talk today about hanging out with winners. You know, we all have big plans and goals and things that we want to do in life. And sometimes we can't see the whole staircase, right? You can see where you want to go, but you don't know exactly how to get there. I was talking with a friend the other day who's going through a really hard time in life. And she's like, I know, Barbie, it's going to work out okay. I have faith. I don't know how long it's going to take. She's going through a really, really hard breakup. So what she's trying to do is just focus on one step at a time. If you're going in the right direction, it's okay that you don't know exactly what you're going to do. The goal is to just trust yourself. You know, I did read something, and I will find exactly where I read it so that I can quote it if I can. But anxiety isn't necessarily fear. I read, and it's very interesting to me, really resonated with me, that anxiety actually comes from not being able to trust yourself. Well, you know what? You can trust yourself. You do know what you're doing. So as long as you're moving in the right direction towards that goal or towards that light or towards moving on with your life or getting over that divorce or grief or anything that's happening to you, as long as you're moving in that direction, you're doing the right thing. The universe will present to you opportunities that are just one step forward. You just have to pay attention. So when I'm going through life and I'm like, hey, you know what? I know I have these big things that I want to do. I don't know exactly how I'm going to get there. So I ask the universe to give me an opportunity that's something that I can recognize and that I'm capable of doing right now. Because if you think 10 years down the line and I see myself with a huge podcast, with a studio, I can't get there tomorrow. But what I can do is the next step right in front of me. Sometimes we need to be ready for that next step, though. So the past few years have been incredibly difficult for me. I've done a lot of really hard things, and I'll talk about a lot of them on the podcast. But the one thing that I did know that I needed to start doing was get up early and go to the gym. So I need to get the gym done early in the morning. If I don't do it in the morning, it doesn't tend to happen throughout the day because you know how it goes. Oh, I'll go later. Oh, I'll go after work. Oh, I'll go after dinner. And you never do. So what I do know is that I need to get up, get moving, get out of the house, and go to the gym. So when I was there this morning, I was thinking of this quote that, you know, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure that you have heard it. And if not, it is super interesting to me that apparently, if you hang around with overachievers or high performers, your productivity or your performance will increase by 25%. And this isn't even doing anything with them. That's not working on a project with them or anything. That's literally just being in their proximity and in their energy. So your productivity will increase by 25%. Now, on the flip side, if you hang out with underachievers, your productivity goes down by 30%. So how can we apply this in real life? So, you know, you say to me, Hey, that's cool, Barb, but I don't really have the choice about who I hang out with. I sit at work, I don't get to pick where my desk is. So I was thinking about that at the gym this morning. I'm at the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning. There is nobody that gets their butt out of bed early in the morning and gets to the gym at 6 o'clock when there's snow on the ground who's not doing something with their life, who's not working on big projects, who's not a great mom, who's getting up earlier before the kids so they can get their self care in before they get home or before they get to the office. So we can do little things like that. Even if you feel trapped in certain areas in your life, you have to remember that you have control over other things you can do. So you can get up earlier and go hang out with overachievers and high performers at 6 o'clock in the morning if you choose to. And I did really notice this morning because I go to F45 in Port Moody, and they're great, by the way, if anybody's looking for a new place to go. And they put you in partners. So when I'm with a partner who's a high achiever, I will notice myself not giving up. So they're still going, right? Like they haven't quit the reps or you need to go for 40 seconds and they haven't quit. I will tend to not to quit. But I did notice this morning when I was with somebody beside, she, dropped the bottle maybe about 5 seconds before the reps were over. And I instinctively also did that. So how interesting is that? That I am at the same gym doing mostly the same exercises as I do most days. And by hanging out was right beside somebody who I don't know. She was a lovely lady. She's doing great. We're both there at 6 a.m. But how interesting is that? So if you are hanging out with people who are high achievers, you will tend to achieve higher too. Now, I also started to think on the drive home, how can we surround ourselves with high achievers if we find ourselves in a situation where maybe people aren't that great? Maybe your friend group is a bunch of complainers. First of all, don't hang out with complainers. That energy will drag you down so fast, it's not worth it. But say you are, and you don't really feel like you have a choice. So you think, hey, you know what, Barb? I want to be a lawyer, but I don't really know what the next step is. What am I going to do? Well, I guarantee you that nobody is hanging out at a law library on a Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock other than people who are really working on their dreams of doing something and getting smarter. Now, I can't prove that to you because I've never been to a law library at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday. Maybe I should start doing that. So that would be an example of something you could do too. You have control over where you put yourself and what situations you find yourself in. There's certain things in our lives, of course, that we can't control and we have to do. That's just part of being an adult, you know, as fun as it is. I just wanted to kind of bring to your attention that you can put yourself in circles with winners if you want to. You are not trapped in all areas of your life. Even if you're going through a hard time in certain areas, you can say, hey, you know what? I'm really worth it. And even if you do it once a week, or even if you do it once a month, that once a month is way more than you did it last month. So if you're wanting to work on a project or work on your education and you don't even know how you're going to start, maybe you do want to be a lawyer. Maybe you're 40 and you're like, hey, you know what? My dream was to be a lawyer. I never did it. I'm going to do it in my second phase of life. That's amazing. You don't need to know all the steps in the staircase. Maybe you do go and hang out at the law library at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday. Who do you think that you're going to be sitting beside? You're going to be sitting beside somebody who's probably 5 steps ahead of you. And I talked about that in my last episode. It's important to surround ourselves by people who are maybe 5 or 10 steps ahead of us, not 100 steps ahead of us. That's way too overwhelming. If I think about my goals and my plans of where I want to be in 5 to 10 years, I have them, but I don't necessarily know how I'm going to get there. Plans and things and spreadsheets and everything that we map out perfectly do have use. Of course they do. But you also need to really realistically know that life can change overnight. And by this time in life, we know that. Did I ever think that I was going to get divorced? Absolutely not. Did any of us think that COVID was going to happen? Could we even have dreamt that? Absolutely not. Now, of course, those are drastic examples, But if you have a plan and a goal, you want to make sure that you're taking small baby steps towards that goal every day or every week. And just keep believing in yourself. You don't necessarily need to know how you're going to get there, but hanging out with people who are doing things in life, who are getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, who are focusing on themselves, they know what they are doing and where they want to go. That's the people that you want to be hanging out with. So, like I said, if you find yourself in a situation where maybe right now the circle that you're with, you know deep down, this isn't the right thing for me. You always know. You know you do. Sometimes it just feels too hard to make changes. So you don't necessarily even need to change that part of your life. Maybe you just add something else. And you say to me, hey, you know what, Barb? I don't have time. I can't. I have way too much on the go. I would challenge you to send me a DM and we can figure it out. Because I am telling you, staying up until 11:30, doom scrolling, or binge watching a Netflix show does feel good at the time. But the next morning, you probably could be at the gym at 6 o'clock hanging out with the winners instead of doing that. So that's that like immediate gratification thing. Of course, it feels good. You had a hard day, you want to have a glass of wine and sit down and watch a show. 100%. And you deserve to do that. But you need to be aware of the trade off. When you're ready to take the next step, that's when you know that it's time. I've spent the past few years of my life kind of feeling like I'm in a cocoon. I knew that I was getting ready for the next step, and I didn't really know what those next steps were, but getting ready is what I knew my job was. So all I had to do was focus on doing the work, getting healthier, regulating my nervous system, stop drinking. That is the number one thing that we probably will talk about next in the podcast is the things that we put into our body. Unfortunately, the ones that feel great at the time are the ones that really do affect the outcome. So tomorrow morning, you do have control. You can get up. You can hang out with the winners. If you're not ready, that's okay. But let's just be realistic and just really tell yourself, hey, you know what? I'm not quite ready yet. Because you can, you're just choosing not to. So when you are ready, you can choose to hang out with people who are high achievers, even if, the obvious answer would be, hey, you know what? I want to be a lawyer. So I'm going to go get a job at a lawyer office and I'm going to be hanging out with these big lawyers who charge a lot of money, like Harvey Specter, and I'm going to be like Donna, and that's going to be the next step in my career. Well, I'm going to tell you, hey, you know what? That's probably not possible because if it was, I already would have taken Donna's job. So you need to just find realistic ways that you can hang out with people in that energy. So if we take that example and I keep going with that one, you're at the law library on Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock. You're hanging out with these people who are in that environment. You can also now start walking the walk. There's a quote by Rumi that I really love. And, I'm a quote person. I love quotes. They're very inspirational to me. I keep them all over my house. And you can see them. Sometimes you'll notice them just at the right, perfect moment when you're like, I just need a sign. And I'll see the quote that's been there for weeks and weeks. And some days you notice them more than others. So the Rumi quote is, as you start to walk on the way appears. So as you're sitting at the law library and you're studying and you're just looking, you could even be reading a different book. You could be listening to this podcast. You're in the energy, you're walking the walk. You don't need to be given that opportunity of some big job or some big plan right in front of you. You're in the energy of that. You were walking the walk. You don't need to be in the knowledge of how you're going to make that podcast happen or that big business or that project. What you need to do is ask the universe for the sign, a sign that you can clearly understand. Your job is to do it. So this podcast is a sign for you. You are listening to it for a reason. And as you are listening to it, A project or a goal or something that you want to do has come into your mind. I know it has. So that clothing store that you wanted to open, or that coffee shop, or that website that you want to design, that came into your head. That is the universe saying to you, that is the project that is your passion and your next step. And how are you going to get to it? By taking advantage of the opportunities and the ideas that are put in front of you. So if there is something that has come up in this podcast that resonates with you, I want to know about it. Because the only way that we can really achieve things in life is if we stick together. You are not alone. The things that you're going through and the people that you hang out with, you're not the only one. A lot of the things that you're going through, I've gone through too. And I really hope that the stories and the rambling that I give really will help you understand that people go through things and they don't talk about them. They don't talk about them because we're worried that people are going to see us as weak or lame or whatever, or, I'm not as good as the person's Instagram feed that I'm looking at. That's not true. They just don't talk about it. So I'm here to talk about it. I want to know what your big goals are. I want to know what that dream is that you could do. Sometimes we sit there at night and you think, I could just do that if somebody gave me the chance. Well, you know who's the one who has to give you the chance? You. And once I realized that the opportunities are not going to present themselves in front of you until you're ready, you're the one that needs to do the work. And when you're ready for them, they will show up. Your job is to just say yes and be ready to do the work. So this episode and these ramblings are all about hanging out with winners. If you find yourself in a situation on a consistent daily basis where you feel worse when you leave the situation than when you walked into it, there's a change that needs to be made. So in a situation, you can either accept it, you can change it, or you can leave. If you accept a situation that you're in, it's okay. If you're in a job that is fine, it's not your passion, it's just fine. You're accepting it. That's okay. I really admire that because you know what? You have bills to pay. That doesn't mean that 1 hour a day or a couple hours on the weekend, you can focus on something that's your passion. You can carve those hours out. Trust me. And if you can't find them, give me a call and we'll figure it out together. Your passion matters. So even if you only spend that 1 hour a week, that's 52 hours in a year, and I bet you can get a lot done. So if you're in a situation and you choose to accept it, that's okay. If you choose to change it, also great. Remember, you can also change your mindset without actually changing the situation. So if you're in that job and it's fine, you can choose to sit there and be like, I hate this job, I hate this job, I hate this job. Or reframe it as, it's just a job. I'm only doing this to pay the bills. This is not me. This doesn't define me. I could choose to leave if I wanted to, but I'm choosing to stay because I want the security of being able to pay my bills. That's changing your mindset without necessarily even changing the job. Then you, of course, can choose to do your passions on the side on the weekends. You can also leave. Any situation that you are in that's not serving a higher purpose, you are always able to leave. This includes relationships, and if you're in a bad one, and especially if you're being hurt, leave. Try to find every opportunity you can to leave any situation that is not in your higher good. If you're not following your purpose and you feel that you need to leave a situation, a job, a city, you can do that. Of course, some situations make it harder than others, but you are never trapped and nobody can control that. So you can either choose to accept the situation, change the situation, or move on. That's something that's very important to remember when we're focusing on our big goals. So wrapping up today's episode, let's hang out with winners. Find environments where you are hanging out in the energy that you want to be in. The quote, I'll believe it when I see it. Well, how about you'll see it when you believe it? If you want to be that lawyer, start acting like that lawyer. Start getting up. Start going to the gym before you would go to the office. Start dressing that way. Start reading those articles. Those are things that you can do, those minor little changes that you can do just in a couple minutes a day. If you want to be a big podcaster, start reading about podcasts. Start listening to podcasts. Of course, you are listening to a podcast now, so that's a good start. Start living in the environment and the feeling and that energy of who you want to be. Because once you are that person, that's when the opportunities show up, not the other way around. Trust me, it's hard work to get there. I'm not even there yet. All I know is in 2025, I've decided that when opportunities present themselves, I'm going to be ready. I'm going to be ready, and I'm going to say yes, and I'm ready to do the work. So, hey, drop me a DM. Let me know your big goals. I want to know what they are. I want to talk to you about them. Let's make them happen together. I'm so excited for 2025, and I'm going to hang around with people who make me feel better when I leave than when I got there. And you're one of them. I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for listening to the Real Talk podcast with Barbie. This is the place for you to come and learn things about the real stuff that we're all going through. Make sure you check out the show notes, links to social media, and information on any guests that we had on the show. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so glad you came.